They say money makes the world go round. What they don't tell you is that it also makes the world a warmer place, thanks to the 12 wealthiest people on earth, the likes of Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and Michael Dell. These tycoons are not just the world's richest, they also top another list, the list of the biggest contributors to climate change. You see, climate change is a global crisis. But not all of us are to blame for it equally. The 12 wealthiest people in the world produce more greenhouse gas emissions than the annual energy emissions of 2 million homes. That's 12 individuals against 2 million homes. Here's another stunning figure. The richest 1% of humanity is responsible for more carbon emissions than the poorest 66%. Our next report tells you why.
The end of 2023 is near. How many of you have achieved what you set out to? We don't mean to hit a nerve. But if you haven't, you may want to turn to climate change for inspiration. It's achieved milestones beyond imagination. Climate change is absolutely killing it. Unfortunately, quite literally. Climate records have tumbled this year. Sea temperatures are historically high. Antarctic sea ice is worrying low. And every continent is facing extreme weather events. Experts say 2023 is on track to be the hottest year on record. This is a global crisis, and it affects us all. But we aren't equally to blame. So who gets the lion's share of the blame? It's simple, those with the lion's share of the money. According to a report by Oxfam, the uber elite are the biggest contributors to climate change. That's the richest 1% of humanity. The billionaires and millionaires. In numbers, that's 77 million people. They accounted for 16% of all carbon emissions in 2019. That's more than the carbon emissions of the poorest 66% or 5 billion people in 2019. More than the amount generated by all road transport globally in 2019. Enough to cancel out the work of nearly 1 million wind turbines each year, and enough to cause more than 1 million deaths due to heat. This sounds bad. But it gets worse when we look at the richest among the rich, the crème de la crème. The top 12 wealthiest people in the world. They produce more greenhouse gas emissions than the annual energy emissions of 2 million homes. That's 12 people against 2 million homes. This isn't an exercise in public shaming, but purely for clarity. Here are the names. Carlos Slim, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Bernard Arnault, Michael Dell, Roman Abramovich, Larry Ellison, Elon Musk, Eric Schmidt, and Laurene Powell. These 12 names have a wealth of super yachts, private jets, cars, helicopters, palatial mansions, you name it. Together, that results in 17 million tons of carbon dioxide each year. And while Jeff Bezos simply flexes his biceps and wears cowboy hats, Bill Gates writes a book on climate change. Matters don't change. At this point, climate change seems to be a champagne problem. So much so that the image of contributions to climate change resembles a champagne coupe. The top is wide, flat, and shallow. That's the richest 10%. On average, they account for 50% of all emissions. Then comes the narrowing point of the glass. That's the middle 40% of humanity. Their carbon contribution is roughly proportionate to their number. Further down is the long, slim stem. That's the remaining 50% of the world population. Their carbon use tapers along with their incomes. That's the bottom hundreds of millions. They contribute the least to climate change, but they suffer the most. This is the greatest irony of the carbon inequality. Like most things in life, climate change too has a class divide. It would take about 1500 years for someone in the bottom 99% to produce as much carbon as the richest billionaires do in a single year. This is unfair and unacceptable. So, what's the solution? Taxing the rich. Climate experts have repeatedly called for hefty wealth taxes on the super rich. This can reduce inequality and fund transition to renewable energy. According to Oxfam, a 60% tax on incomes of the wealthiest 1% can cut emissions by 695 million tons. That's more than the carbon footprint of the UK in 2019. And this tax can raise over $6 trillion a year. It can help fund the battle against climate change. Because money isn't just making the world go round, it's destroying our planet.